Mars, our next destination. For decades we've dreamt about settling this world. Now you can join us on this mission to one of the shittiest and worst planets we could colonize this century.
But why shouldn't you colonize Mars? Isn't that a lit idea? Well yes, if by lit you mean sunburned and cooked with radiation. But let's start at the beginning with the problems of Mars. Getting to Mars will take about 9 months. That's 1 pregnancy long of being bombarded with radiation and slowly going insane because you're stuck in a small space with 5 other people. It's also important when you launch. Every 26 months, Earth and Mars align and sending shit becomes much easier because you don't have to send said shit across the entire fucking inner solar system. You can just send it like directly between the 2 planets. You could also send your shit to Mars in a special way, for example space tethers. Imagine you have a weight and you attach a string to it and then you slingshot your way to the stars. That can reduce the travel time down to like 3 to 6 months, which is better but not ideal. Hope you didn't die on atmospheric re-entry because now you're here. Water, food, oxygen and energy. Those are pretty much the bare essentials if you want to stay on Mars for longer than 10 seconds. Water is surprisingly easy to find. You just dig 2.5 centimeters into the ground, don't ask me what that is in inches, and then you find a bunch of ice, you melt that shit, and bam, water to drink. You can also use that water for other stuff. Oxygen can be made with chemistry. Jonas, explain electrolysis.
Water, also known as H2O, is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms attached to an oxygen atom via ion bonds. Now, to split those H2O molecules into hydrogen and oxygen via electrolysis, we add water to a container with 2 electrodes in it. We then apply a DC voltage across those electrodes. At the cathode, 4 H2O molecules take 4 electrons from the cathode and react to 2 hydrogen molecules and 4 hydroxide ions. At the anode, those 4 hydroxide ions react to oxygen and partly back to 2 H2O molecules. The 4 leftover electrons go up the anode, and that is how at the cathode H2 and at the anode O2 is generated. This is how we do it. Slay.
Food is a bit more difficult because you can't really grow much in the Martian soil. The chemicals to grow all the plants are there, but that shit isn't gonna grow anything anytime soon. So you'd either have to bring your own soil from Earth, that's expensive, make the soil on Mars better somehow, I don't know how, to look like a scientist. I hope I do. Or just fuck the concept of soil and use hydroponics, where you just use water to grow the plants in. You could eat some fish, tentacles. How do we get energy? Well, you could use solar energy, not the best idea on Mars, since Mars is much further from the sun than the Earth, so you only get about half as much sunlight. And you have giant cringy dust storms. What the fuck are those? They just cover the surface for a lot of the time? Jesus. What about wind energy? Well, Mars barely has an atmosphere, but apparently that's not a big problem. Just read this. Apparently wind can be a thing on Mars. I mean, yeah, just use the dust storms. Now, if you want to build a nuclear reactor on Mars, transporting uranium with you as you get to Mars, that depends on your general level of sanity, but it can be done in some insane circumstances. Nuclear is maybe viable, maybe ye, maybe nah, I don't know. Either way, maybe you could just use a mix of wind and solar. So now we can kind of live on Mars. All seems well, right? Nah, bitch. Most radiation is harmless to you, like the stuff coming from your radiator, the microwave, or the electrical grid. But space radiation is a bit of another level. To successfully not have gamma rays burn your skin and flesh away while also disassembling your entire DNA, you'd either have to You'd either have to put a bunch of shit all around you, or some really efficient shit like water or biomatter, like actual shit. Yes, that's a real thing. You can shield your stuff with shit from radiation. That does work. Alternatively, you could also just grind up the Martian soil and just have no windows in your apartment, I guess, and just live under the soil. Or use some really fancy stuff like boron nitride nanotubes, whatever the fuck that is, but NASA's working on it, so it's bound to be cool. Either way, it's gonna seep into your cringy skin and shorten your lifespan. I need to drink water. You know what's also gonna shorten your lifespan? This. Oh god! One problem Mars also has is it's small. Smaller than the Earth, which is a problem. I just said problem twice. I don't care. Oh no, I ruined Earth. Well, it's what humans do. The gravity on Mars is lower than on Earth, so your bone density will decrease, your muscles will weaken, and you will suffer from decreased cardiovascular strength, which just means your heart will go die. All that could be so bad that once you live on Mars for a considerable amount of time, you might never be able to return to Earth. You'll never pet a dog again. The only thing you can really do to slow all that shit down is sports, great, but again, it's gonna slow it down. It's not gonna prevent it. You will die. Or some fancy shit like resveratrol could help. Issue is that cringe has only been tested on mice and rats, and you, dear beloved viewer, are very likely neither of that. I say likely, I don't know what you are. So why the fuck even go to Mars if it's so goddamn uninhabitable and deadly and cringy and boring? Well, for once you could do some science. Mars had a proper atmosphere and oceans once, so maybe some life developed there. Maybe you can find alien fossils. Bacteria, most likely. Don't expect anything fancy like green tall men or something. Another common reason is preventing humanity's extinction, which is a big goal, which kind of makes sense. Living on more than 2 planets would be a good way to ensure our long-term survival. Having 2 houses means you're less likely to end up on the streets if one of them burns down. But just because you now own 2 houses doesn't mean you can't fuck up one of them. Just because we will be living on 2 planets doesn't mean you can just neglect Earth. That's a common sentiment I see, like, oh, we can fuck up Earth. We have Mars now. It's fine. No, it's not. It really isn't. Settling another planet isn't a get-out-of-jail card to just fuck up Earth. Please. So when can we go? Well, Earth and Mars align every 26 months, as I just said. Pay attention. I am mad. But every 15 years they align more, like really close, real close. And the next time that will happen is about 2033. And the 2030s is also when most companies and agencies want to send their fucks to Mars. Then of course there's Elon Musk. He plans to send his fucks there in the 2020s. And I don't know why. It would just make more sense to wait a decade. It would be cheaper, safer, and just more logical and sensible. But since when is this man known for his intelligence? I'm gonna fuck off all the Elon fanboys again. It's no fucking surprise that I fucking hate this man, but let's put my biases aside and check out what he's actually planning. Oh, he doesn't actually have plans for the radiation issue. Even saying that it's no big problem. I guess he likes cancer. Same with low gravity. Guess we're just gonna ignore physics on Mars, sure. And also, how exactly is he gonna build thousands of spaceships, each capable of transporting 100 humans to Mars by 2050? He wants to send 1 million people to Mars? How? Sending 1 million people to Mars is a bit difficult if all we've achieved so far is 12 people to the moon. And he also doesn't really specify how a colony would even work. Like, do they have their own government? Are they employees of Musk? How does that work? What if you don't follow the rules and he shuts off your oxygen supply? Don't try to unionize, I guess. Elon has detailed surprisingly little. Almost like he doesn't actually know what he wants or how shit works. People tend to forget it's there, even though you can see it with your own fucking smexy pupils. And it's a much better idea for a smashy colony. Smash. First of all, going there takes 3 days instead of 3, 6 or 9 months. And you can also return, so it's not a one-way mission of death. You can also see Earth from the moon, so maybe that's a bit healthier for your mental state. A moon colony could also be actually useful. Slay. One of the problems with Mars is you're not really gonna have much economic activity there. Like, only with itself. You couldn't really send stuff to Earth as like an export or import. It takes too long and it's too expensive. With Earth and the moon, however, you could mine shit on the moon, for example helium-3, which we would use for fusion energy once we get that someday. Probably soon. And then you could actually export it back to Earth without it being economic nonsense. Doing science stuff could also be much more fun on the moon. The moon doesn't have an atmosphere at all, so you could build a telescope and look at the sky. So why the fuck this burning passion for Mars? It's not gonna go away, and we have a much more easier and safer target right in front of us. It's right there. It's right here. If we are gonna sext those nudes. If we are finally gonna start with space colonization, start with something fucking easy. We've never done it before. At least as far as we know. Lick titties, fuckers. So I'm gonna end everything now. Bye. Bye. Cool.